Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions and another edition of Danny and Tim's Music Scene. And every other Wednesday we get together and we have ourselves a great time. I have a fantastic time. I know by our numbers that you guys have a fantastic time. And somehow, in all these months with Corona and all the lack of live music and all the lack of shows, we still continue to have great conversations about music. This time around, we'll talk about some anniversaries surrounding George Harrison and some fun Beatles stuff. We'll continue to give you tips about things that you can watch, including new concerts by The Mavericks. That particular performance I watched on Austin City Limits, the latest edition of that. Tim's got some tips on the documentary about the history of Austin City Limits, and certainly that makes you yearn for the live music scene as far as Austin is concerned. We have a little bit of a divergent discussion about the band Heart, which has a biopic that should be coming out in the next year or so about the Wilson sisters, and, of course, one of the great podcasts around, besides this one, of course, is Rick Rubin's Broken Record, where he interviews, along with others, some of the greats in music. And recently, Denmont Tench was the piano player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, was the subject of that. And this time around, we give you an update on a new conversation with Mike Campbell, the great guitarist for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers as well. There's other detours, other bits of fun. It's always great. I love it. I love doing all my podcasts, but this one has a special place in my heart. Each and every other Wednesday, that goofy phrase that I use to describe when you get Danny and Tim's Music Scene, it's straight ahead. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's becoming a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com and let Chad help you. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson & Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092. Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the pure gold oil. And recently I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new smart laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Tim, we continue to fight the good fight, and people are trying to get different ways to enjoy and absorb and produce music, and of course, enjoying it right now is mostly a virtual thing, almost entirely a virtual thing, and it gets you into areas where you'd like to head down and discover, and maybe you wouldn't be doing it if you weren't so desperate for music. And I know you've got a couple of things on your mind, especially regarding, for one, George Harrison, with a litany of anniversaries right about now that have led to some retrospectives and things about him.
Yeah, the end of the year is filled with some George moments, a couple we don't really like to think about. But so the 50th anniversary of All Things Must Pass was like, I think it was the 28th. Yeah, I think it was the 28th, and or the 27th, one of those two. It was Friday, and so that record, it was really just a showcase of like all the ideas that have been simmering and percolating inside of him while he was with the Beatles. And it was just this really lavish showcase of songwriting and lyrics and melodies and arrangements, and just a beautiful album with a really, really good spirit, the kind of spirit I think everyone associates with George now as being not just the quietest Beatle, but maybe the kindest Beatle. And love the record. Not really a weak point on it. Some great moments from him. And then 2 days later, it was the anniversary of his death in November of 2001, which every year reminds me of how bad that year was, and it just got worse. His dying didn't help my mood anyway. And he was only 58, and every year
right.
That just seems so much younger than it used to. And it's and I always go back and read things about him and read quotes from him. And he was just a guy who was really, I think, more at peace being not a Beatle and just being George and having children and raising his family and working on the music he wanted to. And just sort of, he put all of his like Beatle relationships into place. There's a photograph going around that I pass every year. It's a photograph of George, Ringo, and Paul, the three surviving Beatles, the last time they were together, because George moved out to Los Angeles when it was obvious that he didn't have a lot of more time to live, and he was living with Paul McCartney, I guess, or nearby. So they were all together, and there's a photo of them, and he looks, for a guy who was 2 weeks away from death, he looks just like George. So that sort of compounds the sadness. But yeah, I always go back at this time of the year and just read and remind myself of who he was and who he'd become, and how I think these days I get a lot of people who say, yeah, you know what, I love Paul and John and Ringo and I love their music, but as a person, he was my favorite.
It's interesting that on a Beatles note, I think I've mentioned before that I get this thing that comes into my inbox. I don't even know how it started happening, and it's called Quora Digest, and there's often a lot of music things in it, so it's kind of fun, and I've never gotten rid of that link or said, please don't stop sending me. And it's just regular people who answer questions. And I think some of the information's probably right on point, and some of it's maybe just kind of dreamed up. But it's interesting nonetheless. And the one that came today was, is there any interesting fact about somebody who lived less than their means, who was the celebrity? And I haven't read the whole thing yet, but the tenor of it is that Paul McCartney is known as a cheapskate. Have you ever heard?
I know that he saves his money. Yeah, he's not. I don't think he has a garage filled with, really expensive cars. I don't think he collects expensive things. I don't know if that makes you frugal or smart with your money or cheapskate, but yeah, I've read things to that effect, that he's not, he's not advertising his wealth, and he's got a lot of wealth. I mean, we think Patrick Mahomes is going to be wealthy. I think McCartney's probably wealthier than that. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. He's kind of a, they all came from relatively modest means. None of them came from wealth, and I think they sort of stayed that way as much as you can when you're that popular and that wealthy.
Apparently, there's a story that's going around, whether it's true or not, anecdotal, that he wouldn't pay for his daughter's college unless she went to a state school, which I don't know if that's true. He's obviously worth more than $1 billion, and if you get the writing rights to, did they at some point? No, that was Michael. Wasn't it Michael Jackson? Yeah, didn't the Beatles buy Michael Jackson's? That went back and forth so many times. I forget which court it's in now. And yeah, I think so. I think he got the Lennon McCartney back or something. Yeah, I don't know. That was just a lot of speaking of rich people playing games with ownership of things. Absolutely. Well, something that I'm absolutely, because we were speaking before I went on, dive into if I can find it. And sometimes you get things where certain things are only on one streaming service or certain things like that. But you have come upon a documentary that's from 2015 or so. That's the history of Austin city limits, and that must be some must-see TV.
Yeah, it's a little over 90 minutes, I think. It's called A Song for You, the Austin City Limits story. They celebrated their 40th anniversary in 2014, and this came out, I think, a year later. So it explores like where they are now. They've moved into a brand new, spanking new, sparkly building because it's just gotten so big. They wanted bigger crowds than they could get in the place in the TV station where they'd been recording it. So they go through them moving out. And there's a lot of sadness, a lot of memories there. Most of the original staff, or a lot of the original staff, was still there because why would you leave that job? And then it goes through. It shows a lot of archival footage, like of the very first show. It was Willie Nelson, of course, and Willie's got a big, thick mane of red hair and a big red beard. And if you just saw that picture, it would take you probably 3 or 4 seconds to realize who it was. Sort of big cowboy hat, and then they just go through year by year some of the guests that they'd had, and mostly country artists at first. But then slowly it evolves into other genres, and Stevie Ray Vaughan. They show footage of him. They got a really interesting story. I guess the first time he came on, he was out of it. He was still an addict, and they thought he was just insanely good. And after the show, he was really upset. He thought I was awful. Can we not air it? And they said, no, you were great. And then about 6 years later, he came back on when he was clean and sober and was even crazier good. So they show both, the first and the second. There's a little blip of Leonard Cohen. There's John Prine and Bonnie Raitt singing Angel from Montgomery. And just, it's really stunning how that became a go-to place for people. Like Ray Charles. They approached Ray Charles. He was in Austin for a show or something. And they said, hey, the director of the show started to tell him about the show. He goes, oh, I know that show. Yeah, I'll come on there. Of course. Why wouldn't I? And so Ray Charles was on. And then they get to how they evolved into doing more just music of any genre, including like Radiohead is held up as the kind of, this is about as experimental as we want to get. But it was a great show. And we got a really good response to it. And it's just really, the 90 minutes go by so fast because there's so much for them to tell, and they get in and out pretty fast. It made me so many shots of Austin and downtown Austin and all the clubs. it really, really made me like homesick for South by Southwest, which I went to for God 10 or 11 times, and just remembering how the first time I went, it was still a relatively small festival, and then just grew so big that, like Austin is now, it just outgrew itself. And it was too expensive, and it was a real shock. That was one of the first things that canceled this year in March, and that was for all of us really seismic. Like, oh, this thing is really going to do some damage to the music world, because if they're canceling that, what's next? But anyway, yeah, that's a great doc. I got it on Canopy, which is the library service, streaming service, and by all means, look it up.
Yeah, that sounds like something that has an absolute can't miss. Now, the most recent Austin City Limits, the one that debuted on November 21st, is the Mavericks, and they last year, or late last year, I believe, or early this year, put out an all-Spanish album called El Español, and much of it is that, but there's also some of their best concert favorites. It's really, really fantastic, and it's another thing, like you just said, makes me yearn for whenever I'm going to see the show I still have tickets for that was first supposed to be in May, then in September, now set for next May. Maybe there's some hope for that one, but really well done. Only the second Austin City Limits ever done without a studio audience, and really fantastic. And that's a must catch for anybody who likes music, period. But if you're familiar with the Mavericks, you'll know how much fun they are to watch. And you actually you've attended an Austin City Limits. Did you not say that?
Not at the TV show, but I've been in the performance space. Yeah. For South by Southwest. Yeah. So it's a great venue. It's just significantly bigger and more modern, and a bit larger, so they can get bigger crowds in there and just do shows otherwise.
Did they say in the documentary how many people could they put in the old one?
They were talking about which show had the biggest crowd. Oh wow, I can't remember that, but maybe it'll come to me while I'm talking about it. They they doubled their, like, they had like 700 people in there. I know what it was. Wait, it was Chris Christopherson. Yeah, they were taping this show. I don't want to spoil it, but it was a Chris Christopherson show. It's a really funny story, but I'm pretty sure it was that show. But something happened, and then the fire marshal came in for the first time and was like, yeah, I think they had like almost 800 people there for that show. He's like, 400's your cap. Sorry.
Right. So they kind of always shot it, with the moving camera and everything to make it look like there were more people there and being creative with it. And how much does it hold now?
Well, I don't know. It's over 1,000, I think.
Right.
'Cause I saw, this is all hazy right now because it's been at least 5 years. I mean, I think the last time I went was 15 or 16, so that was 4 years ago, almost 5. It was. It's just a really nice, post-millennial theater now. It's really nice. I was never in the old one, so I don't know what that was like. But significantly more, maybe, triple. I mean, it could. I think it could hold. It seemed to me like it could hold 1,000 to 1,100. But anyway, so I like I told you, I can't get the PBS up on my Sling stream for some reason, but I did go back and look. I found a video on YouTube of the Mavericks show, and just listening to him sing in Spanish, it's just, his voice is so great, but there's something a little more mellifluous about his voice singing in Spanish that makes it even more alluring.
Yeah, and Raul Malu, I think he's been putting out these videos and everything else, but it sounded like his voice was all rested, not like he never ever sounds bad, but I mean it sounded like he was really fresh and not touring 150 shows a year or whatever. Well, we've touted
we're doing 3 shows and 3 nights at Knucklehead.
Right, exactly. And we've touted in the last couple the series of that Rick Rubin does and Broken Records, that podcast, and he said, I guess the one you listened to most recently was Mike Campbell, and that must be unbelievably interesting. I don't think I've ever heard Mike Campbell speak. actually.
Oh,
What kind of a, I haven't seen him interviewed. I don't know why. I haven't had sought it out or whatever. Maybe in a group interview I've heard him say a little bit, but is he an engaging interview?
yeah, he's pretty garrulous. He doesn't sound like Petty, except he played a song from his new band. He's putting a record out pretty soon, and that was just a drop dead Petty song. I mean, I really liked it.
Right.
Pretty primitive 3/4 chord rock and roll song with melodic with kind of familiar sounding changes, but I really liked the song. And yeah, he had a lot to say. There's one part it gets really, really, they really get really deep inside baseball, talking about the recording of the song Free Fall, and it was when they first started working with Jeff Lynne, and it gets into, and Rick Rubin was interested because he's a producer.
Right.
And just how Jeff Lynne, it was just like, I think 3 of them in a drum machine, Jeff Lynne, Mike Campbell, and Tom Petty. And it was interesting to a point to where I just kind of got lost of him talking about how they multi-tracked and doubled the multi-tracks and, how just it changed his and Petty's whole view of production. But yeah, he talks about just everything from kind of start to finish. It's pretty much just a narrative of when they met. And Petty said to him, like, the first time they met, you're going to be with me forever, or something really, prophetic. And of course he was. And he was a little, I was surprised, Rubin was like, God, I can't believe Tom Petty's gone. And Campbell's like, well, yeah, he is. I don't dote on it too much, frankly, because, what can we do? But he did get a little choked up talking about, at one point, just like, oh my God, I forgot how many memories we have, and the most poignant part is towards the end, he's talking about the last show they did and what he observed in Petty and just how happy he was to be there and to be on stage. So it's touching. It's it's kind of, if you love that band like I do, you're gonna listen to every word. I might have mentioned this before, but there's a previous one with Ben Montench that doesn't. It's not as long, but it's equally as sort of illuminating. Just talking about being in that band and how it was their life.
Did he say anything about playing with the Eagles? I mean, with Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac.
No, that never came up.
Oh,
it never came up.
That just seemed like a.
Or if it did, I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't remember it. But I've listened to so many podcasts, music podcasts. No, I don't remember him talking about that. I don't think Rubin brought it up.
Okay, well, it's probably better left untalked about. That sounds just like, not like he needs it, but it just sounds like a pure paycheck to me. But anyway.
That might have been on the list of things not to talk about.
Maybe. Well, we've got a few things left on the list to talk about coming up next with Tim on Danny and Tim's Music Scene right here on the Reasonably Irreverent podcast. It's part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you had a great year in 2019, a record year. 2020 comes, things are moving smoothly along, and then the coronavirus comes. But your company seemed to be very ready, very proactive, and very ready to serve your customers well.
Yeah, we adopted social distancing very early before the cities even put out the notices. And we started working from home. We are largely cloud-based as a company, so that transition was easy. Our technicians are wearing masks and gloves, and salespeople are not meeting with homeowners. We're doing everything digitally and doing everything we can to do our part to get over this as quickly as possible.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from WreckExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit wreckexpert.com and learn more.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
It's time to visit once again with Dr. Brad Woodle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. And Dr. Brad, your group has reached a significant milestone in receiving a prestigious award.
Danny, we've been honored for the 10th year in a row to receive the 5-Star Service Award from Integrity Doctors. And what this means is that all of our offices throughout Kansas City have made sure to give people excellent chiropractic and acupuncture care, be on time, and do a very complete and thorough job, and have great responses back from patients.
I know firsthand because I was just treated, for instance, today by you. You have a wide range of fantastic services.
Absolutely. Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies, rehab, anything that you need to keep you well in bones, muscles, joints, and nerves.
And I can't say how much it's benefited me in the time I've coming here. Upwards of 2 years, my back has improved 100%. And you can have that same kind of treatment too. For more information and your chance for a healthier way of life, visit asfca.com/Danny today. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back. We're here with Tim, and we visit each and every other, and I do that every time, each and every other Wednesday. Doesn't ring very true, but anyway, bi-monthly. How's that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Every other week we talk music, and it's always a blast for me. I was looking through some music news today, and apparently there is a Heart biopic movie in the works, and whether somebody's fascinated by that or not is their bit of taste. I was never somebody who really thought Heart was that great, but, they have a couple, 3 songs that I like. They certainly were a breakthrough as far as, trying to pave the way for women in rock, so I give them credit for that. What are your general thoughts about the Wilsons?
Oh, I was for those 2 records, Dreamboat Annie and Little Queen are amazing records. I love both of those records a lot, especially Dreamboat Annie. I think Roger Fisher is completely overlooked as a guitar player. He is just a master virtuoso, but because he was third in line, maybe
right.
He was overlooked, but he has some amazing guitar licks. I remember listening to him. He was up there with Steve Howe of Yes when I was listening. I had a roommate who was a Yes fanatic, and he loved Roger Fisher for the same reason. So, yeah, her voice is supreme. And I'm getting them confused. Ann's the singer, Nancy's the guitar player,
right.
and also a singer, but was married to Cameron Crowe. She's very good on the guitar too. So they were really talented. And they sort of evolved. They lineup changed and stuff like that, and they became less of a progressive rock band and into some easy listening stuff, that I didn't really care for.
Right.
But I know, just being sisters and women and rock and hard rock, it wasn't pop or folk or R&B. So they're to be admired, and I know they just within the last few years came out of a nasty feud with each
right.
other. It involved, I think, Ann's husband and abusing Nancy's children, and they weren't speaking to each other for years. And I saw Ann come out just as herself with a band, not as Heart. at Starlight. But then the next time they came, like 2 or 3 years later, it was Heart, and with a just a band behind them that wasn't any of the originals. But I like a lot of their music, but I haven't. Like I said, it's pretty much confined to those first 2 albums,
Right.
which are really good, especially Dreamboat Annie.
Yeah, and there are a few songs on that I like. I do like their musicianship. I do like the idea of them. I guess just hey, music's a very individual thing, and there's nothing I dislike about what they do.
Right.
But it seems like if they, the interview was that I read was with Anne. And I don't know how in depth they're going to go, but it sounds like it could be an incredible story as a movie. I mean, because of all the things they went through. I mean, obviously one of them, and I get them mixed up too. Nancy's the one who gained a bunch of weight, right? Isn't that her?
I think that's Anne.
Is that Anne? Anyway, the dark-haired one got fat.
That doesn't make me feel good that I don't know their names, but it's just because I don't think about them I don't play them much. So,
right.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure Nancy's the one who married Cameron Crowe.
Right. So
was married to Cameron Crowe.
Right. And and then the breakup and all that. But that sounds like it would be a really fascinating journey as far as cinema is concerned. I think that where we are at as far as the virus and the politics and the music scene might be tied up in something going on right now. Van Morrison just put out, I think, his 4th song that is anti-lockdown song, and he did it with Eric Clapton this time around.
Right.
And he's getting a lot of criticism for this, and they person who's in charge of health for Northern Ireland isn't really happy with him, and and he has a foundation. I understand his thoughts about trying to save live music and everything, but he may well be going about it the wrong way. But I think tied up with that particular story is all of the kind of confusing and challenging mechanics about this whole situation, because yes, live music is going to be hurt. It already has been and will be hurt immeasurably for years to come, but you just can't necessarily pretend that horrible things aren't happening. And the UK and other places, Germany, are just returning to some lockdown situations again. It just puts maybe a musical highlight on just how confusing and rough this whole thing is.
Yeah, I mean, shame on Van Morrison for one thing. Right. I mean, if there's a population you don't want to put at risk, it's the people who go to see his shows, for one thing. And I saw him once down at South by. I was in like the 3rd or 4th row. He's a notorious curmudgeon. That's a kind word to use for him. And you could just tell he treats his band like they are, hired employees. And like when his back was turned to them, they would be like giving each other looks like, "Yeah, God." And when he finally left the stage at one point, so they could do an instrumental because they were a fabulous band, even the crowd was like, "Yes!" So they could just kind of freewheel and let loose and not worry about if their boss was going to fire them a stink eye. So when I heard a couple of stories from people who work in the bars down in Austin that where he was staying, he was just kind of really overbearing and pompous. And anyway. So I love a lot of his music, but as a person, and I kind of leave it alone. So I'm not sure what he's getting at. We all know that the reason everybody's back to where they were is because regulations were relaxed, behavior became relaxed. What's going on in sports right now is just wow. I mean, I don't know who's going to finish a year, between college and pro football. So there's great news about the vaccine this week. It looks like it's going to be sooner rather than later. That's going to be, the ship turning, and maybe pretty sharply, because the one of the experts I heard was like, he said, yeah, maybe you'll be, you might want to wear a mask as a precaution, but summer, fall, things should be not normal like they were a year ago, but much, much closer than they are right now. So who knows what we'll be doing and whether we'll see a show at Starlight late next summer or early fall. But it at least seems a remote possibility. But, we've all got to do what we can to not make it worse, because it's bad right now.
Yeah, it is. So you're not giving me much hope for a May Maverick show. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, maybe. I mean, if it's I mean, it could be. This guy said spring.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
He said mid-spring to early summer. He goes, fall, definitely. We could, at least it's going to be out there. You know, you got to get people to take it.
Right, that's true.
So that's probably an optimistic estimate, but it sounds better than things did 3 months ago.
Right, maybe this is a list we can go down sometime at Van Morrison and talking about that issue particularly. Do you think that Brown Eyed Girl is the most overplayed song ever?
I can't. The only one I can think of that might rival it is "The Weight" by the band. I think I've heard so many people cover that. Also, that bloody what's the song? The Dylan. I can't think. I'm so sick of it. I put the title out of my head. Dylan wrote it, and the guy from rewrote it. The guy Catch. It was like that country. Darius Rucker did a cover of it. Wagon Train or Wagon Wheel.
I don't remember. I don't know where.
Oh, it's everywhere. It's like it was the lead into Ken Burns' country music.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, I got you. Maybe the only other one I can think of is "Horse with No Name." That's about
Really? Oh wow.
That's been played a bazillion times. Well, I'll say this. "Horse with No Name" was played more when it came out than maybe any song I've ever heard. So.
Yeah, one of the worst lyrics ever written in that song. But just as a side note, speaking of Freefall, that became a really popular song to cover even before Petty died, but especially after, like the year after he died, I would hear bands were covering that song just as a tribute to him, and I didn't mind that at all.
No, that's nobody's going to mind when that happens, and we never mind when we get together and talk music, and we will do so again in 2 weeks. That's a much better way to put it than what I did when I was talking about how often it's on. So, Tim, always appreciate the time.
Same, Danny. Talk to you next time.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.